Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor, and today we're going to do a little overview on Honda's dual-clutch 6-speed automatic transmission on their motorcycles. So this is our 2014 Honda CTX 700D. Technically it's the ND because it's both the naked model and has the dual-clutch automatic transmission with ABS. So let's hop right on into it. Instead of offering a 6-speed manual, Honda offers the dual-clutch automatic, or DCT. Taking a look right here at the controls. Over here you notice no clutch lever, and down here no shifter lever. You do still have a brake on the right for the rear and front brake on the right handlebar. And your standard controls are fairly normal. You've got your brights, you've got your horn, blinkers, and then your kill switch and starter. For the other controls, you've got a parking brake right here. That's something you don't often see. You can pull that back and engage the parking brake. You see a little red come out of the button there, and then you can pull that back and press it in, release the parking brake. Very similar to a car. On the left side, you have your downshift button right here and your upshift button over there. So as you're riding, if you want to shift manually, you can upshift with your index finger or downshift with your thumb. Then on the right side, you have up at the top AT/MT. That's for being in automatic mode or manual transmission mode. And then down here you have neutral, drive, and then a sport mode. So how does this all work in practice compared to a manual transmission bike? Overall, riding it is fairly similar. Go ahead and switch the key on. You get your gauge firing up. You have the kill switch on. You can very subtly hear the fuel pump run. Get it all ready to go. Just like a manual bike, you can't start it with the kickstand down unless you are in neutral. In fact, I can't even put it out of neutral without starting the bike. So we've got neutral indicator on the dash, neutral here, kickstand is down, and just go ahead and press the starter. Fires right up, little parallel twin, humming away. And then you're in neutral. So it's just like having your clutch in or being in neutral on a manual bike. You can rev it up, listen to that throaty exhaust note. Now, if I try to put it into drive, right there, it won't go with the kickstand down. So I have to pull the kickstand up. You can hear it very thunk into drive there. But then if I put the kickstand down, it kills the bike. So I can start it back up. It's in neutral again. Put the kickstand up. And then you press D. You can hear that thunk. And just give it some gas and roll away. It's remarkably smooth, and it still provides a sensation of riding a manual bike because it is essentially like a manual transmission. It's just doing the shifting for you, so you still get that sensation and the snappiness of having a direct connection, no torque converter there. Now, if you do want to emulate the sensation of being on a manual bike, you want to have it in S mode. As you can see, just running around in this parking lot here, it's cycling between first and second. If I were on a manual bike, I probably wouldn't bother shifting into second gear if I knew I were just putzing around a parking lot. So if you shift it into S mode, then it holds gears. Well, I guess it still went into second there at about 16 miles per hour, but it does hold gears and shift a little bit more like you might on a manual bike. Let's start out and drive, get out on the road, see how it reacts. In drive now, 12 miles per hour, already into second, now third, fourth, 30 miles per hour, ease off the throttle, and is it gonna shift? Yep, fifth gear, 32 miles per hour. As we come up to the stop sign, bike downshifts. If there's anything not as smooth with the DCT as with manual bikes, it's coming to a stop, because oftentimes if you're in a manual bike, you engine brake, whatever gear you were in up to a point, and then once you kind of get to the bottom of that gear, you pull in the clutch, comes smoothly to a stop. Not the case with this bike. So I'm coming to a stop here, kind of clunks you a little bit as you continue to stop. And then you can just sit right here and drive, no problem. There's no pull, there's no resistance, it's not trying to creep along as it would in an automatic car with a torque converter. There we are, top gear at about 38 miles per hour. And the bike does get pretty luggy. I'm surprised that Honda has this thing shift so low. I'm sure it's for fuel economy, or that's really just healthy for the engine, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels as though I'm lugging the bike, but about 2,000 RPM, 44 miles per hour here, this thing trundles right along. If I'm going out for a ride and I'm not commuting, I'm actually trying to have a little bit of fun, I do typically drive it in S mode to make it feel a little bit more like a sporty motorcycle. So if we come to a stop, I'm going to push the D and S button again, shift into S mode. I get a little S indicator on the dash. And the bike does adjust for how aggressive you are with the throttle. It's very much like a car in that way. If I give it a lot of throttle, it'll downshift, and it'll hold gear for a little while and drive sort of sporty until it senses, all right, he's done hooliganing, let's shift a little bit more conservatively. If I come away from this stop sign fairly aggressive, and it sort of holds third gear here as I coast down. Now, if you don't want the bike to try to read your mind at all, if you don't want to deal with shifting when you don't want it, you've got manual mode right up here with your index finger. Then I've got no D or S above the gear indicator. It will downshift automatically, but then as I get going, and here it revs up and up and up, and then fuel cutoff, 6,500 RPM. So I use my index finger on my left, press gear. So this allows you fairly complete control over the bike. Going. It's not the most natural feeling to use one hand to cycle through your gears. It would feel a little more natural if it were one on the right, maybe up on the right and down on the left. But they can only work with so much space, so I kind of understand why they did it the way they did. Now, while it is nice to have that manual control over your gears, I don't find myself using it all too often in manual mode. What I do use the buttons for is, let's go back into automatic here. So now we're back into S. It'll shift for me. Say we're just cruising along right here. Let it get down into, let it get up into fourth gear. Will it go into fourth gear? Guess not. Let's say I was in D. So shifted into fourth gear, and then I want to downshift manually coming into this corner. I can do that, bring it all the way down into second in the corner so that I have that power coming out ready to go on tap. So you can still use the manual shift buttons even when you're in drive or sport. So let's take a look at what sort of responsiveness we get. If we're just driving along here in S mode, let's get to about 40 miles per hour and hold it. Let's see if it stays in fourth or if it goes to fifth. Looks like we're staying in fourth gear. That's fair. I'm at fourth gear, 3,000 RPM, and I go full throttle. Immediate drop down and pull away. Let's say if I were going a little bit slower, about 30, third gear, immediate drop and go. How about when you're in D? Let's get up to 40 miles per hour. At 40, when you're just driving easy, this thing upshifts very quick. So we're in sixth gear right now, just above 2 grand, full throttle. A little more hesitant. It dropped to fifth right away, and then it took a second, decided to go to fourth as well. How about let's go back to S. Let's manually shift it up into 6. Will it even do that? No, it won't even manual shift to 6, but we've got it manually shifted to 5th at 3,044. Full throttle. 4th and 3rd. So I like the dual clutch automatic. I would go as far as to say I prefer it over the manual transmission bikes for riding around town, most riding situations. The way I tell people about it, especially other car enthusiasts, is a manual transmission makes a car more rewarding to drive, because without shifting your own gears and interacting with your feet and your hands, with all of your limbs at once, you're missing an element of communication with the vehicle. At that point, you're kind of just piloting this 4,000 or 3,000 pound machine. A motorcycle, even when you're not shifting with your foot and with your hand, all four limbs are still engaged. I still have a foot on this pedal. I mean, technically it doesn't really do anything, but it's there, and my whole body is communicating with the bike and being one with the machine. So even though I'm not manually telling this, okay, once you hit this speed, I want you to shift and go to a different engine speed, you don't need that in order to have a relationship and communication with your motorcycle. It's a very visceral and connected experience, even with an automatic transmission. And I would go as far as to say it's safer because it allows you to focus more on the road. As I pull away from the stop sign, I'm scanning, I'm focusing on keeping the bike proper, focusing on my throttle inputs. I don't have to worry about shifting. So it really surprises me that no brands outside of Honda have pursued this automatic transmission. It works really well. I think I've heard that in Europe, DCT take rates for Hondas are about 50% of their new bikes, and I believe it. Having owned this CTX 700 for a little while, I would absolutely pick up an Africa Twin or a Goldwing or an NC 750 with a dual clutch automatic. And as you come to a stop, you simply come to a stop, and then you could either shut the bike directly off or put it in neutral first and then cycle off the engine. So, there you go, Honda's automatic transmission for motorcycles. Pretty neat stuff. So thank you all so much for watching. If you want to see more on our CTX 700, check the link in the description. We've got a little ownership intro, and we're doing more videos on this bike. And we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.